Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Today it is Running Backs Preview Part 2, and we are recording this on Monday, August 5th, so there could be some big news between now and Wednesday, August 7th, when this episode is released on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. But hello, everybody, and welcome back to Running Backs, and I'm Adam Azer with Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg. I'm going to start you off with a little bit of running back trivia. Here we go. I don't think this is going to be too hard. Which team has the fewest rushing touchdowns by running backs from inside the 5-yard line over the last 6 seasons? Hint, they have a top 12 running back in your consensus rankings.
The team does, or the players at top 5?
Well, the players on the team, that's the answer to this question. Fewest running back rushing touchdowns from inside the 5-yard line over the last 6 seasons.
My knee-jerk reaction was Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
That's a good one. But it's Buffalo, of course.
That's a good one.
Buffalo. Okay, next one. Since Lamar Jackson became a starter 5 seasons ago, where do the Ravens rank in running back rushing touchdowns? Not from the goal line or anything. Just running back rushing touchdowns by the Ravens in the last 5 seasons.
Top 5.
6.
5th. Very good. I'll give both of you credit for that one, but Dave gets a little more credit.
Dave gets credit.
Which running back, currently 13th in your consensus PPR rankings, has been top 17 per game in all 5 of his NFL seasons? And he's on a new team this year, and he's never caught a touchdown. Never caught a touchdown on 197 catches.
JJ.
Correct. McCarthy. JJ McCarthy is the answer. Josh Jacobs. That's maybe the floor for Josh Jacobs. Has been top 17 per game every year of his career. And then the last and most important trivia question: who is Zach Moss's famous cousin?
Jesse Eisenberg.
Is it? No, it's not Jerry Rice. It's Frank Gore, maybe? No, something like that, right?
It's a Miami connection there. It's Santana Moss.
Santana Moss.
Sonoris Moss. They are Zach Moss's cousin. How you guys doing on this Monday evening?
Great.
Good. Really good.
Ready for Brandon Ayuk to get traded.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't say that because by the time people hear this, he may have been traded. But we are waiting to see. All right, so we're just going to go through ADP. Part 1 was an overall strategy thing. We looked at our thing. That's a good word, Adam. Overall strategy episode. We looked at our pick-by-pick series and how we crafted the running back position on our teams from different spots in the draft. So here we go. We have 3 running backs in the top 6. They are Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, and Bijan Robinson. We all good with that?
Yes. It is interesting to see that Bijan's ADP is ahead of Breece Hall's.
Does it stay there? Because we've started to receive a stream of information that suggests that Bijan Robinson will share more than we would like him to share, and that Tyler Algier is going to end up being still a factor in the Falcons' offense. What the hell? What the hell, Atlanta? What are you doing?
I think if you're drafting Bijan Robinson, you're expecting him to share. You're just not expecting him to share as much as he did last year. So if he's sharing as much as he did last year, then this is going to suck. If he's sharing to the level of what most running backs share these days, then you should expect a superstar.
I'm not really that mad about it. I just wanted to act a little.
Yeah, okay, that's good. I like the acting here. I was a theater major, you know that. So do you have a strong preference about when to take these top 3 running backs instead of one of the top 5 wide receivers?
Format matters. So non-PPR, they should be the first 3 players off the board. Half PPR, I put them ahead of Jefferson and St. Brown and potentially Jamar Chase, depending on how long this hold-in lasts. In full PPR, for me, they're behind the top 5 receivers. So I go McCaffrey, the 5 receivers, Breece and Bijan.
I've got Breece and Bijan behind Lamb and Hill. So they are top 5 for me in full PPR. I think they'll probably be exactly there in half PPR. And I agree with Jamie. Non-PPR, first 3 off the board: McCaffrey, Hall, Bijan Robinson. By the way, the snap percentage last year, Bijan Robinson played 68% of the snaps. That includes the migraine game. Algier was at 32%. Cordell Patterson would mix in with these guys. Sometimes they'd play together, 16%. I would be fine if it was a 68% snap share for Bijan Robinson.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the big problems for Bijan last year was he wasn't getting the goal line work, so hopefully that changes. All right, so then it gets a little bit trickier. After that, we've got 3 more running backs in round 1. I'm using Fantasy Pros overall PPR ADP, and the next 3 running backs, they're all like right at the 1-2 turn. In CBS ADP, Saquon Barkley is a little bit earlier than that, but it's Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, and Jahmyr Gibbs. So, Jamie, do Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, and Jahmyr Gibbs belong in the first round?
Not all 3 of them, but with the Puka Nacua news of him missing some time, I think we're going to see all 3 of them in the first round, because when you start to get to the back end of round 1, and we know there's essentially an elite 8 that everybody will agree on, then the 9th player for the most part is going to be A.J. Brown. I think the next player should be Garrett Wilson. And then you have 2 spots open. But if you don't believe in Garrett Wilson and you don't want to take A.J. Brown in the first round, then you're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs and Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor. Now, ADP will tell us that Barkley is in the first round already. I like Gibbs better than Barkley. I like Barkley better than Taylor, but I think all 3 of those guys are basically in the same tier for a reason. You know, they have the chance to be top 5 running backs, and you should be excited about them.
Okay. I think we should, look, if those first 3 are easy picks, more concerns, obviously, with Barkley and Gibbs and Taylor. For Taylor, it's probably catches and maybe touchdowns. We don't know what that offense is going to look like. For Gibbs, for the 15th time this offseason, or maybe this month, since July, I'll say that Gibbs was the number 10 running back per game after David Montgomery returned from injury the last 9 games of the season, and that was with him on pace for 17 touchdowns. He averaged a touchdown per game, and he was still only RB10 per game because he was on pace for like 200 carries. So there's that. And then Barkley, Barkley has not been nearly as good as a rusher since his rookie year. And a lot of people will just immediately assign that to the Giants being terrible. But, it's possible that he's just not as good. And he's had a lot of lower body injuries. So is it risky, Dave? Are those guys risky to you?
Sort of. They've all got one significant wart that the first 3 running backs don't have. And with Barkley, with all 3 of them, they're all sharing. And they could all be sharing rushing touchdowns with somebody else. Montgomery with Gibbs, and then quarterbacks with Taylor and with Saquon. But they all should touch the ball a lot. They all have upside to be very, very good. I've got Barkley at the back of the list just because he's a little bit older. I'll take Taylor over him even in full PPR. I'll take Gibbs over both of them in full PPR. I think Gibbs gets more work than he did last year. I think the coaching staff will be a little bit more comfortable with him, confident in him, and they'll want to get him going. I think he caught a deep ball in practice today. I think it was him who did that. And so, if they're expanding what he can do as a receiver, then my goodness, 17 touchdowns and then that yardage pops. He could absolutely be the type of guy that you're taking toward the end of round 1. And next year we're taking him. I don't know. Couldn't you see a way to him if Montgomery's out of there? Jahmyr Gibbs, the 101 in 2025 fantasy drafts. Would that surprise?
It could happen this year if Montgomery goes down. We saw it. 2 of the 3 games Montgomery missed, he was 26 PPR points or more. And so,
baby,
the upside is there for him to be the number 1 running back. I do think that. Well, first off, I'll come back to Barkley in a second. Kyren Williams belongs in this group too. And, the offensive line concerns that we're starting to see with the Rams are somewhat something to keep an eye on there. But, the more that you hear coming out of Los Angeles, it's definitely his job. There was some question, is Blake Corum going to steal work? And he's going to get opportunities, but I don't think he's going to do enough to keep Kyren Williams off the field, barring an injury, and then we see what happens. But I don't think you should shy away from Kyren just because maybe he's a one-year wonder or maybe because Blake Corum is there. This is just a better backup as opposed to a guy coming in to compete for the job. So I do think Kyren belongs in the conversation at the back end, but belongs in the conversation. If you get a chance to watch the video of the show we did on CBS Sports Network today, Robert Turbin, former NFL running back, was on with me and Adam and made the case that Barkley should be the number 2 running back in fantasy based on his situation going to Philadelphia. So it was a very compelling argument. Obviously, I pushed back on it a little bit, but it's the people that are in on Barkley are in on Barkley. And, our projections suggest that. the way ADP tells us that. If he hits in Philadelphia because of everything around him, and Robert's point was, nobody's keying in on stopping Saquon Barkley when you have Jalen Hurts and the receivers that they have there. He's going to be a big piece of the puzzle, but not the focal point like he was with the Giants. So we could see a big year for Barkley if things, come together for him.
Yeah, and I made the point that Saquon Barkley, if you're worried about rushing touchdowns and the opportunities that are going to be there, last year the Giants, he had 6 carries inside the 5-yard line. He had every single carry for the Giants. The whole team, they had 6 carries inside the 5-yard line. The Eagles had 30. It's unbelievable. Not all those are running backs. Jalen Hurts had 17 of them, or 16 of them. But still, the running backs had a pretty good amount. They had like 13 carries, the rest of the team. And Barkley had 6. So I know that he's going to have to compete with Jalen Hurts, but they are just going to be there so much more than the Giants were in the last few years of that era. We'll talk more about Kyron. I also want to say this about Jahmyr Gibbs, just kind of a positive here on Gibbs. Over the last 5 seasons, we have had 6 running backs, so 1 per year, and then 1 year there were 2 that finished overall in the top 5 with right around 200 carries, with less than 210 carries. Some of them scored a ton of touchdowns, like Raheem Mostert last year. Some of them had a ton of catches, like Austin Eckler 3 times. I don't know if Gibbs will do either of those things, but maybe he'll be sort of in the middle on both, like 60-something catches and 12-ish touchdowns. And with his efficiency and yardage, that might be enough to make him top 5. But it's not easy. Like, you're not going to see a bunch of guys that are in our top 5 where there's also another running back on the team that's in the top 24 or right around there in the rankings. So
in ours, no, but there are probably a handful of people, and maybe ADP is still reflecting this. Devon Achane not far from the top 5, and Raheem Mostert still in the top 24.
I would also say that the drafting these guys, you're drafting them very close to their ceilings. And the reason why I think they're going this high is because there really isn't anybody else at any other position, save for like Garrett Wilson or a healthy Puka Nacua. You can make the case for Marvin Harrison if you wanted to. But I don't know. I think we're a little lean on guys who are like obvious no-brainer round 1 talents in the NFL. And so I think a lot of these running backs might fill that void, and there might only be one in every league that actually goes in round 1, and then the rest go in early round 2, and it's still really close to their ceiling. And so if you're really subscribing to that and you go, I don't want to draft anybody close to their ceiling, try not to get a late first/early second round pick this year.
All right, we got to take a break in a little bit, but there's something really exciting I want to tell everybody about. It is the Fantasy Football Today Open. We're going to start this, I think, next week. And last year we did 8 leagues of 12 teams. We had 1 commissioner, which was a CB. It was me, Dave, Jamie, Heath, Schneier, Jacob Gibbs, Sia Najad, and Chris Towers. We had 8 leagues. We had 11 spots available in each league. They sold for $250 per slot. All of the money went to St. Jude. We raised $22,000. This year, we're going to go from 8 leagues to 12 leagues. We have 4 new managers, and actually, Jacob's not doing it this year, so we have 5 new managers. We have I hope I can get this right, Frank Stanfill, Katie Mox, Will Brinson, John Breach, and Thomas Schaefer is going to be a commissioner in the Fantasy Football Today Open. So we want you to be a part of it. You can join the Jamie League, the Dave League, the Adam League, whatever you want to league, whatever league you want to join. There are going to be 11 spots available. You're going to play the first 14 weeks within your division, 15 weeks. The championship in your division is week 15. Then we're going to take the 12 division winners. We're going to put them against it, whatever. In week 16, the top 6 will move on to week 17, and the highest scorer will win the Fantasy Football Today Open. And we're going to raise over $30,000 for St. Jude. So this is going to be a big opportunity for you. It's not available yet, but it will be on our Draftathon site, tinyurl.com/draftathon2024. Just wanted to get your juices flowing because the FFT Open is coming back. Now, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. And here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up on the BetMGM app. Probably tired of hearing me talk? Here's a commercial break. We'll be back with round 2 after this. Okay, round 2 running backs. So the top 6 were McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs. And that gets us to the second round. We have Kyren Williams, who Jamie says belongs in that group, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, and Isaiah Pacheco. These are all round 2 running backs. Kyren Williams, 16th overall, Etienne, 18th overall, Derrick Henry, 19th, Pacheco, 22nd, and that's it. That's 5 running backs in that range. Jamie, what makes Kyren Williams different from these other guys who over the last 6 seasons were undrafted in fantasy and finished in the top 12? James Robinson, Mike Davis, Cordero Patterson. That's the company that Kyren Williams is in. What makes him different?
New regime following the year that they were good.
Is that the case with all of them? Yeah, quite
I'm
possibly.
certainly the first 2.
I believe he's younger than everybody, except maybe he and James Robinson were about the same age.
And he was better, too. I mean, he was the number 2 running back per game. He averaged like 22 points per game or something.
And he got better as the season went on. He was a terrific fit for that scheme. He got every high-value touch that you could have asked for. He absolutely did. He was the Cinderella of fantasy last year.
So why do I
got 2 guys on the same team?
Why do I get the heebie-jeebies when I draft him a little bit? Why do I hashtag heebie-jeebies?
I don't know. That's a question for you to answer, not for me.
Because
I drafted him today in our half PPR mock.
Yeah.
And I didn't hesitate. He's one of the running backs that you're going to get somewhere between 15th and 20th overall in pretty much every single league. Maybe he goes a little earlier in some of those leagues, but when I'm picking in the middle of round 1, I'm basically targeting a receiver because I'm looking for a running back like him, like the other guys you named in round 2. You can pencil it in. You're taking a running back in round 2, unless you get really lucky and Marvin Harrison falls to you. But he's got the volume. He's got the high value touches. If you want to get the handcuff and Blake Corum, you can do it in round 10, and you're on your way. Maybe you've got the heebie-jeebies because of injury news lately with the Rams.
It's because he's a day 3 pick who ran a 4.65 40, who came into the NFL as a 3rd down back out of Notre Dame. And then you think about like Dameon Pierce, and I know, I took him recently like 15th overall, so I would definitely take him early in the second round. I'd take him before his ADP, but he does make me a little nervous just because this was so unexpected from Kyren Williams.
Do you feel better about Derrick Henry? Do you feel better about Pacheco?
No, I like him better than Barkley. I would take him as RB6. I just saying.
So I don't see how many heebie-jeebies you could have if you're taking him ahead of Saquon.
It's just there's not like he'd have to be Arian Foster at this point. Like a lot of guys that are this low level prospect and burst onto the scene. Sometimes they burst into flames. So
well, I mean, you can make the same argument for Pacheco, really. I mean,
yeah.
But what do those guys have in common, and what do they have in common with Arian Foster?
Good offensive lines, good team.
There's definitely, yeah, sure. That's part of it. And scheme is definitely a big part of it. Foster was a perfect fit for what the Texans ran back then. And Pacheco's a good fit. And what I was going to say is they all got better. They all became ascending players as time went on, and they learned their craft a little bit more. And I think I've saw evidence of that last year with Kyren Williams. Okay, he was bumping into his linemen's butts early on in the year. And I remember thinking to myself, there's no way this guy's going to keep doing what he's doing. But his vision improved as the season went on, and I think he did get better. And now he's clearly Sean McVay's guy. All the reports say so. And I'm happy to take the chance on him in round 2.
Okay. And, I was watching Nate Tice break down the Rams blocking scheme and their use of duo blocking and how it really they didn't do this. They used to, run it out wide all the time, and then teams adjusted to that. So now they run it completely differently than they did in the Gurley era, and it fits Kyren Williams very well. Okay, so the other guys in this range are Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, Isaiah Pacheco. I think I said there were 5. I'm sorry. So I guess there are only 4. Kyren, Etienne, Henry, and Pacheco. I keep wanting to put A-Chain in round 2, but he's not. Jamie, do Etienne, Henry, and Pacheco belong in the top 22 overall picks?
Yes, the one that's a little tough to. I mean, look, they're all tough to say guaranteed to be there. So I disagree with Dave a little bit. Like when I get in the middle rounds, I'm still looking for Drake London and Chris Olave. So I'm not necessarily saying I have to go, running back there. But yes, if you're talking about getting the next group of running backs, I think you can make a case for James Cook and Rachaad White to be in this group also. When you look at what these guys have to offer, in some cases like, Cook and White and hopefully still ETN, they're going to be heavily involved in the passing game. For Pacheco, there's a chance he may be involved in the passing game, but should get, all the high level touches. Same with Derrick Henry. Henry's a little tough to swallow because of his, age. And, are you concerned that he's going to break down? And I think, we're sort of split on that in terms of, you and Heath, Adam, are sounds like you're completely running away from it. Dave and I think are willing to, take the chance on Henry still being a productive running back just at the right price. So, if you're inclined to go running back, or, starting with, your first running back in round 2, if you're going to go running back in round 3 or hero RB from this point forward, you just have to understand that these guys have more warts than the, 5 or 6 guys in front of them. And hopefully they hit to the level that we're expecting them to perform at.
All right, let's go to round 3 then. So we are now up to Devon Achane, who's definitely someone that the people are higher on than CBS. Achane, Jacobs, James Cook, Rachaad White. This is PPR ADP on Fantasy Pros. It's Achane, Jacobs, James Cook, and Rachaad White. Dave, your thoughts on that quartet?
I like that quartet a lot, but there's going to be names in there that I like better than Achane. In fact, I think Achane might be the lowest for me among that group.
What is it that we have against Devon Achane? What are the people missing here?
I think they're not considering his downside enough. I don't know if there's a path to him getting the strong majority of touches, all the high value touches in Miami. I think he's going to have to share, and I think he'll share whether Raheem Mostert is healthy or not. When I talked to the running backs coach, Eric Studsville, about him earlier or last week, we talked about the added weight he put on. He put on some muscle. He's noticeably stronger. And the one thing that he really thought would help him in that regard is durability. The muscle would help him stay on the field. I think that coaching staff really wants to make sure that he's available for as many games as possible and not overwork him. There's also the case of what happened last year. Heath brought this up. His biggest games were when the Dolphins were either getting blown out or blowing somebody out. I don't know if that necessarily carries over to this year. I think that he could end up having a meaningful role in the offense and an evolving role in the offense where he can catch the ball more. Certainly did a lot of pass catching when I saw him in practice last week. So maybe he tacks on a few more targets every single week and the carries stay around 12. And then you're counting on him being hyper efficient and having some breakaway plays for touchdowns. He's going to have a few of those weeks. It's all the other weeks where he's not getting all that work or he's not as efficient that makes me see a low floor for him. And he might have a couple of weeks this year where he only has 10 or 11 PPR points. Now, if you're willing to take the chance on that with his ceiling being 40 points, because he'll have some blow up games while also understanding that he could miss time. That is part of his deal. He missed time his last year at Texas A&M, missed time last year with the Dolphins, and he's never going to be the full-time workhorse dude. Then you take him. But those flaws keep me from pushing him into middle round 2.
Okay. And so you said you have the other 3 guys, Jacobs, Cook, and Rachaad White ahead of Devon Achane in full PPR.
I do.
Jamie, do you also have Jacobs, Cook, and Rachaad White ahead of Achane?
I have Achane ahead of Jacobs, but I have the other 2 guys ahead of Achane. Because look, Dave's spot on with everything about Achane. But my God, if he hits, he's going to be a top 5 guy. I mean, that's the upside. We've seen it. And so, you're banking on Raheem Mostert at 32 years old to still be as productive as he was last year or stay healthy and, not avoid missing any time. And if that's the case, then Achane's probably going to be a bust. But if he does miss any time, I don't think Jalen Wright is going to be that much of a factor by comparison to Raheem Mostert. So Achane could break fantasy. He's got that much potential. He's a guy, Dave mentioned, Jahmyr Gibbs could be the 101. If this Dolphins offense continues to produce like we saw last year, where Raheem Mostert led all running backs and rushing touchdowns, so that's certainly there for the starting running back for Miami, then Mostert's most likely gone after this season. It'd be very surprising if they brought him back. Do they bring somebody else in to supplement the roster as a third guy or somebody of significance to supplement as a third guy, assuming Jalen Wright now moves to the second role. I mean, we could be looking at Achane as a top 5 pick next year. So, you want to have that type of league winning player, and I don't want to reach for him, but I'm also not afraid to take him. So for me, he is a 3rd round pick.
What's better value? By the way, this is all 12-team leagues. What's better value, Achane in the 3rd round or Mostert in the 7th round?
I'll take Achane in the 3rd.
I would too.
Okay. Yeah, we'd rather have Mostert a little bit later. 7th is a bit rich, going ahead of Tony Pollard, ahead of Jonathan Brooks, so that, that now he's definitely going ahead of Jonathan Brooks, going ahead of Zach Moss, Jalen Warren. By the way, round 3 had been a dreadful round for running backs. Over the last 6 seasons, there are only 7 running backs who were drafted in round 3 that finished in the top 12, but 3 of them were last year. And that's because there were only 8 running backs drafted in the first 2 rounds last year. So that pushed, that means you're in a shallower part of the running back pool in round 3. But typically, when you used to get 14 running backs or so off the board in rounds 1 and 2, round 3 was horrible. This year so far, we have 10 running backs off the board in rounds 1 and 2. So round 3 might be good again. There was I think there were 5 or 6, some big busts last year in round 3, but some really good picks like Jahmyr Gibbs there as well. All right. How about, Rachaad White? We got the report that Bucky Irving's going to have a role. And we get those reports every year about every rookie. It's always the rookies. They're always going to have a role, and they're always getting first-team reps, but maybe it's true. Rachaad White, as a rusher, has been one of the most inefficient running backs in the NFL since coming into the league 2 seasons ago. As a receiver, he is absolutely dynamite. But he does scare me because, I'm a scared person. Yeah, I'm scared of everything. I'm scared of my shadow. But I don't love investing a 3rd round
pick. What about that spider on your poster?
Spiders, actually, I am okay with spiders because we have so many.
He has a spider on his poster?
Probably.
Yeah, you don't see it?
But yeah,
you're scared to take Kyron Williams in round 2, so of course you're going to be scared to.
Everyone sucks.
Yeah.
What I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast. I keep meaning to. 2018 through 2021 were 4 of the 8 highest scoring seasons in NFL history, including the highest scoring season in NFL history, which was, I think, 2021. The last 2 seasons have not even been in the top 20. We don't have good, there's no good players anymore. It's just 10. Anyway, does anybody get concerned about Rachaad White and how bad of a rusher he's been?
No.
Unless Bucky Irving is who the reports say he is. And now there's a path for someone else in Tampa Bay to be more efficient on the ground and still catch the ball. I mean, if Rachaad White's inefficient and he's slower and clearly slower than Irving, and Irving can hold up, they'll make the move to Irving.
Yeah. 3.7 and 3.6 yards per carry in 2 seasons. He did have a very tough schedule last year, but even in his easy matchups, he didn't do that well. Bucks drafted Graham Barton in the 1st round, but I think they've already lost one of the guys who was competing at guard for the season. And the guy had 272 carries. 3 of them went for more than 16 yards last year. That's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. You're cool with him. James Cook is a guy that I talked about on part 1. He's going a lot later than he goes in our drafts. He could be a really good value for you late in round 3. And let's go on to round 4 in average draft position here. I'll just recap. McCaffrey, Hall, Bijan, Barkley, Taylor, Gibbs. That's round 1. Kyron, Etienne, Henry, and Pacheco. That's round 2. Achane, Jacobs, James Cook, Rachaad White. That's round 3.
And you love round 4.
Well, yeah. I mean, these guys, we're not that deep into what are we, 14 running backs in? Sorry, there's 10 and then 4. Yeah, so now this is RB's 15, 16, 17, and it's Kamara, Mixon, Ken Walker. Do you guys like this trio of running backs in round 4?
Yep.
I don't love them all in round 4, but I love them. Yes, if I can get them.
What do you mean by that?
The only one I think I would take in round 4 is probably Kamara. I'd prefer to get the other 2 guys in round 5. But again, I just push receivers up probably a little bit more than you.
I think, a lot of ADP is probably based on 2 running back, 2 receiver leagues, right? And a lot of our drafts are 3 receiver leagues. But with Kamara, Mixon, and Walker, you do have guys who have done it before. Kamara was a top 5 running back per game last year. He's been top 6 per game in 2 of the last 3 seasons. And those are 3 of the worst seasons of his career. He was obviously amazing before that. Mixon's been a top 12 running back per game in 5 of the last 6 seasons. And Ken Walker hasn't, he's been about this ADP. He's been like 18th-ish. He's an interesting running back, but I think, I think you're getting a good proven group in good situations. So yeah, that's my take. Because then after that, like after these 3, I think the other reason, Dave, I like them is because after these 3, I see a difference. You tell me if you do. Kamara,
yes.
Walker, right? Then you've got James Conner, Montgomery, Zamir White, Ramondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones, all those guys. Do you see a difference there?
There's a drop off, and those other running backs, the Conner, Montgomery, Jones group, those are like the last chance, maybe to definitely RB2s before you get into the range where you go, oh, I really don't want to start the next tier after that. So that's the drop off. So if you find yourself starting with 3 receivers or 2 receivers and a quarterback, whatever, and you can get your hands on one of Walker, Kamara, or Mixon, I like it a lot. I think that those guys can serve as low-end RB1 types, even in non-PPR in the case of Kamara, and you'll feel okay about it.
Okay. Anything else to add, Jay? Can you talk to me about Ken Walker and how you feel about him? I
moved him up recently.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jamie.
No, I was going to reference our conversation with the Seattle running back. So Robert Turbin said that, they're going to split between Walker and Charbonnet, but it's still Walker's the guy. And, anytime they need a big play, they're going to look for Walker. My hope is that he gets a little bit more involved in the passing game, because I think we're going to see a lot more first and second down throws, and that will certainly help him. Obvious passing down situation, Charbonnet should be in there. And Charbonnet is a great value, because should something happen to Walker, you're looking at a potential top 15 running back, in my opinion, because I think Charbonnet's got a lot of talent. There's offensive line concerns there, but look, we saw it in his rookie season. We saw it for, portions of his sophomore season. I think more plays, faster offense, Ryan Grubb's system, while he's not the best pass catching back on that team, is still going to be maybe north of 30 catches, and I think it'd be 10 touchdowns. And so it wouldn't shock me if he's, 1,500 total yard guy. So don't have any problem taking him. But again, I'd prefer to get him in round 5.
Grubb has talked about using Walker more, envisioning him as a 3-down back. That's not just recently. He also said it back in June. And I think that his explosiveness gives him a sizable nod ahead of Charbonnet. And if there's going to be 3 receivers on the field and that pass threat is going to be there every single game, then there's going to be lighter boxes and better opportunities for Walker to do some good things. And I think he can catch the ball a little bit more. And I think you will see more targets this year. So I moved him over Mixon, and I've got him behind Achane. I don't see him leapfrogging Achane, not at this point, but Walker's someone that I definitely don't mind targeting in round 4.
But don't you think Walker is going to get more carries than Achane?
Yeah, he probably will. I don't know if he'll get as many catches.
Right. The catches
and
are...
and as efficient as he is, certainly when he gets a lot of work, I don't know if he's really efficient. He might be more the inefficient boom bust type of running back. So never mind what I was going to say.
No, he is. That's exactly what Walker is. He's always trying to hit home runs. And you just wonder how much patience they're going to have for him. I hope he can become a more consistent running back.
No, if he hits a lot of home runs, he'll be good.
Yeah, that's true.
The Mariners can use him.
I'll take Aaron Judge.
If there were 7 games last year that Ken Walker did not score a touchdown, when in those 7 games, he finished higher than RB27 one time. And that was in half PPR. So that's like really, you're just living and dying based on whether or not he gets into the end zone. And it's difficult to handle. All right, that's round 4. And we're about 16 or about 17 or 18 running backs into ADP at this point. We're going to take another break on Fantasy Football today. And now we are approaching a big glob of running backs. And I'll get your general overall thoughts, like how many of these guys you want on your team and which ones you like the best. We'll get to rounds 5 and 6 after this on Fantasy Football today. All right, let's get that big glob of running backs. So starting in round 5 in full PPR, Fantasy Pros, average draft position, we've got James Conner. And he's actually, I think, the only guy going in round 5. And he's almost round 5 has almost no running backs right now. So picks 49 through 60. James Conner, David Montgomery, Zamir White, Ramondre Stevenson, and DeAndre Swift. And then you get like the Steelers guys and the Bengals guys and the Titans guys and Mostert and Eckler. But if let's start with just Connor, Montgomery, Zamir White, Ramondre Stevenson, DeAndre Swift. Jamie, that's 5 running backs there. Who's your favorite?
Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah, I would not touch James Conner around 5 in anything but non-PPR. There's no chance. What we saw from him last year was very good, but there were some red flags. First 1,000-yard season, first time, 5 yards per carry. But his work in the passing game, I know it was better with Kyler Murray, but still was not very good in a new offense. And so now you bring in Trey Benson. And again, you don't want to panic because of a, rookie running back. That's not a second round pick, but there's still a lot to love about Benson coming there and what he can do, as a compliment to James Conner, just from a Benson standpoint. From a Conner standpoint, at his age, missed 3+ games, for the last 5 seasons. Who knows what happens if he goes down? I hope he doesn't. I hope he plays the whole year. I hope he's still the same productive, amazing fantasy option that we've had. And I'm excited about this Cardinals offense, but that's just too rich for me. So he is a top 24 running back for me, but just not somebody that I'd take that early.
All right, so that's James Conner. Dave, I'll just give you the names again. We got James Conner, David Montgomery, Zamir White, Ramondre Stevenson, DeAndre Swift.
I'll take Zamir White at the head of this group. And I've got him ahead of Conner. And I really like the way that he finished last year for the Raiders. What do we know? 15.2 PPR points per game in those final 4 games. He was the lead running back. He did that scoring 1 touchdown, Adam. So
Wow.
If he starts to score more touchdowns, that number goes up. He had 9 catches in those last 4 games, so he got some targets. The Raiders went 3-1 in those games, and they didn't do anything to really improve their quarterback situation. So I'm sure they believe that a huge part of how they're going to win games this year is handing off to Zamir White and not being as pass heavy. What did I just say there? I don't even know. Pass heavy. As other teams, and probably even in their own division, in the case of Kansas City and maybe Denver, probably not, but game flow will obviously matter. But I think that it's worth taking the chance on. This is another kind of inexperienced player, kind of in that same mold as Kyron Williams, but with a much smaller sample size, who I think can be the lead back for the team. And I think they're banking on it because the only splashes they made, and these are like little like fingers in and out of the pool splashes, were Alexander Madison, who was inefficient and really not that good last year with Minnesota, and Dylan Laube with a late round pick in the draft. And he's a 3rd down back. And he's going to take White off the field. But I still think White gets a ton of high value touches. He's an absolute unit. If you've watched him on Instagram or seen clips from training camp, just a huge dude. Offensive line got upgraded. I will take him over James Conner, and I'm a Conner fan. I like that Conner's had over 15 PPR points each of the last 3 seasons now. He averaged almost 18 PPR points with Kyler last year, and that was on 2.9 targets per game. He scored a lot. And so Conner would be next up, but I'll take Zamir White first.
If you approach this group here in mostly round 6 in Fantasy Pros ADP, you already have 2 running backs in the top 17. So let's say you have Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara or whatever. Are you skipping this group and waiting and getting your RB3 in the Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, Zach Moss, Chase Brown, Tajay Spears?
Yeah, if you're getting a running back to be your RB3 in this group, it better be at a value. There was one mock that we did where I got Zamir White in round 6. Would not have touched him in round 5.
That's where he's going, though. But he was going earlier, like in our draft, so it did feel like a value when you took him there.
It did, yes.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. But like, this isn't such an exciting group. If you're already good at running back, you don't need to dip into this group.
Correct.
Okay.
This is, for me, I don't generally draft these guys. Stevenson and White are 2 that I've taken a few times, but definitely don't take Connor. Montgomery's more of a settle for guy. I just think when if you're telling me round 5 and round 6 for this group, if you're in a receiver heavy league, hopefully you've gotten your receiving core, your 3 receivers. This is like I'd rather take my flex at the receiver spot than I would my number 2 running back if this is the guy. I certainly would not take them as a 3rd running back.
DeAndre Swift, we're not taking here either. He's part of this, but we don't like him in round 6, right? Swift?
I don't know.
No, but Connor is closer to Swift than he is these other guys for me.
All right, let's take a look at round 7. Najee Harris, Raheem Mostert. Can I just pause and just say this, though? Like, I'm giving you this ADP. Your draft, I think there's a group of like 20 running backs. You're probably going to see like Ramondre Stevenson and Montgomery. They're probably going to be closer to the front. But once you start getting to the middle guys, they could go anywhere. And you in this ADP, you're going to see Chase Brown going later than Zach Moss. But in more recent ADP, they're practically back-to-back. So take it with a grain of salt. But round 7 is Najee Harris, Raheem Mostert, Tony Pollard, Jonathan Brooks. And then round 8 is Zach Moss, Jalen Warren, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb. That's a lot of names. Let's do round 7. Najee Harris, Raheem Mostert, Tony Pollard, Jonathan Brooks. Jamie, your thoughts on those 4?
Again, I don't really want to draft them, but if I'm looking for, this is the spot in the draft. If you go 0 RB, round 7 would be where you start to look for your number 1 running back. And certainly if you go hero RB, you'll start to look for your second running back here as well. Brooks was my favorite prior to the news, so can't draft him here at this point. Najee is probably the safest of the group, just looking at what he should be able to accomplish and get done in Arthur Smith's offense, and hopefully benefit from coming in a little bit smaller and better shape and healthy. But the situation. It's Jalen Warren is going to eat into his workload and potentially be better than him. So if you're inclined to take one of these guys, you just have to understand what you're getting. You're getting somebody that could be as good as a top 20 running back, or somebody that you may not be playing or potentially cutting if things go really bad, based on how the second guy on that team could be doing.
Funny thing about the Steelers is that Jalen Warren and Najee Harris have combined to miss 1 game in their careers. That's 5 combined seasons. They missed 1 game. So you haven't even gotten that. Oh, well, there's the 3 games. Like, remember you got from Jahmyr Gibbs, you got 2 games with more than 20 fantasy points with David Montgomery out. And maybe that doesn't help you all season long, but it helps you win a couple of weeks. You haven't even seen what could happen in Pittsburgh if one of those guys goes down. Yeah, all right. So Harris, Mostert, Pollard, Jonathan Brooks. Dave, any big thoughts here on these 4? Or should we move on?
Harris is the one I like the best of the bunch, but it's not with serious conviction. I think back to what the Steelers offense looked like after they changed offensive coordinators. Najee averaged like 13.9 PPR in his final 7. Warren was down to 10.2. Before that, Warren was better than Najee. And now it's a completely different offensive coordinator. It's a guy that does scheme up runs very well. It makes me a little optimistic about both of them, and maybe a little bit more of Najee over Warren. But if Najee's inefficient to start the year, maybe it's going to take the Steelers 14 months to finally throw in the towel and say, all right, Jalen Warren, you're going to be our lead guy, and Najee takes the back seat. We don't know. Okay. But they're both going to play a lot. I don't think either of them have a ceiling to get you 15 plus PPR without the other getting hurt. And so when you draft them with the idea that they'll be right around 11, 12 PPR points. That's the range for a lot of these guys. The one guy that could break out of that is Jonathan Brooks, but he's got to prove that he's healthy first. Brooks might be better than 12 PPR points the last 6 games of the season. But getting to that point, he might be a real pain in the butt on your fantasy squad.
By the way, Dave, doesn't Jamie look like he's the first reporter to show up to the press conference? Imagine.
Because the chair's next to him?
Yeah. But okay, is there a big difference? This is a hard show to do for the audience, the audio audience. I apologize. Is there a big difference between the round 5, 6 guys and the round 7 guys? So here
you were going to talk about the chairs and Jamie's shot, and that's why it was going to be hard for the audience.
You can still laugh. Just picture it. So the round 5, 6 guys are Connor, Montgomery, Zamir White, Ramondre Stevenson, and DeAndre Swift. Connor, Montgomery, Zamir White, Stevenson, Swift. The round 7 guys are Najee, Mostert, Pollard, and Jonathan Brooks.
There's a drop-off.
Yeah.
At least a point per game, if not 2 points per game.
Is it
Minimal
enough?
drop-off to me.
Okay. And that's what, in my mind, it's a lot of times where I'm going, I don't have my tight end yet. I could take a running back here, but maybe this is more of a round 7 to 8 conversation than 6 or 7, but not really. Like I don't have my tight end yet. I think I'm just going to take Kyle Pitts here, wait another round, and I'll get a running back that's slightly worse. do you think?
It's funny you mentioned that because that's what I did in the flex draft. So that's half PPR. You can play up to 5 wide receivers if you want to. So my first 6 picks were 5 receivers and Kenneth Walker. And so Walker I took in the 4th round in that draft just because of how the running backs were going. And so I kept looking like, okay, do I take Jalen Warren here? Do I take Tajay Spears here? Do I take Chase Brown here? One of those guys. I'm like, okay, let me see. I'll play the board, come back around. And then, I agree with you, Adam. Like, I want to get one of those top 8 tight ends. Well, okay, there's Evan Ingram. I'll take Ingram here, and I want to just play it again, see what happens, comes back around. And a couple more guys go out the board, but there's still a group that I'm like, oh, CJ Stroud's right. I want to take CJ Stroud. I'm gonna come back around, see how it goes. Like I kept trying to play the board, and like the last guy of this tier of like Warren, Spears, Brown, I think there's maybe one more guy, but Brian Robinson's in there for me. Ended up with Brian Robinson.
Yeah, he should be.
And I like him, but there's a reason why he's the last guy of a tier. So I like the 2 Tennessee guys better. I like Chase Brown better. I like the 2 Pittsburgh guys better than Robinson, but he's a guy that I'm okay settling for. But again, it was like exactly what you're saying. Like, oh, there's that group, there's that glob. I don't necessarily love this guy more than the next. So let me take my tight end. Let me take my quarterback. I had my core established. I'm okay sort of mixing and matching the second running back. And so hopefully that'll work out.
Do you feel like you don't want your team to be too reliant on this group of running backs, like this big group of say 15 or so running backs, especially if it's a 2 receiver league? I get it. You could be weak at RB2 in a 3 receiver league with PPR with a flex. It's fine. But I don't know. If you go hero RB and you have Breece Hall in round 1 and you have David Montgomery and Warren and Tajay Spears, I guess that's not so bad. That's
a great result if you go hero RB.
The thing you got to be comfortable with is if you go 0 RB, and then 2 of these guys or 3 of these guys are your core running backs. That's where it feels queasy, but there's a reason why you did that. Because you hopefully crushed your receivers, quarterback, tight end. And if you do that, then you got to understand, okay, I'm going to be the aggressive guy at running back on the waiver wire. I'm going to try and make some trades to see if I can maybe turn my 5th receiver into somebody's 3rd running back, and that guy becomes somebody that's just in the mix, and maybe something happens. So you just got to understand what you're dealing with. And so I can give you just a reference point. I know I did this in our half PPR mock, where I drafted Bijan Robinson 6th overall, and then went Chris Olave, Nico Collins, Devontae Smith, Dalton Kincaid, Terry McLaurin, Joe Burrow, and then my next 2 picks were Chase Brown and Devin Singletary, and then I closed the draft with Marshawn Lloyd and Tyler Algier. And so I'm thrilled with that because I'm very comfortable with hopefully Bijan being Bijan. I did draft Tyler Algier, like I said, but hopefully being Bijan. And then, okay, if Chase Brown doesn't hit, maybe Singletary will be okay. If Singletary doesn't hit, maybe Marshawn Lloyd will give me some production for a few weeks, and just sort of cycling through that second spot. So if you're going to go hero RB or again 0 RB, that's the way you have to do it from a comfort standpoint. My one guy is there, or my group of everything else is so locked up that I don't care what the running backs look like. If those receivers, quarterback, tight end hits, I'm just going to bludgeon you to death with those players, and the running backs will be sort of inconsequential.
Yeah, but keep in mind that is a 3 receiver full PPR league, so with a flex.
But the philosophy is the same in a 2 receiver, 1 flex PPR league.
I don't know. Give me the team again, because I think that's probably a little bit of overkill at wide receiver.
Yeah, that's fair.
If it was a 2 receiver league with a flex, I would have dipped into the running back pool where I took Terry McLaurin. So Bijan Robinson, Chris Olave, Nico Collins, Devontae Smith, Dalton Kincaid. Where I took McLaurin, I would have taken a running back there, which I believe the next player was Ramondre Stevenson. So if you want to play it out that way, then that's the way you can go.
So
that's a good way to go.
You had Devontae Smith and Ramondre Stevenson. I probably would have had your first 3 picks and then Alvin Kamara and Terry McLaurin.
But I drafted with you, and you took Kamara 50 spots too soon.
That's round 4. Dave, like what do you think you would have done if you had started Bijan, wide receiver in a 2 running back, 2 receiver league and 1 flex?
I would have considered running back in round 4, and if one of Walker, who's that trio that we like?
Kamara.
Yeah.
Mix, the next running back was Mixon, so you could have had Mixon.
I probably would have gone in that direction, but it also depends on what's left at the other positions.
I know.
What was left at quarterback? Were all the quarterbacks gone by then?
The top 4 guys were gone.
Yeah, so I probably would have gone Mixon.
Topic for another day, but I'm starting to get pretty excited about Devontae Smith. I'm looking forward to
Me too.
Right? Like the
if he plays in the slot more, he could have a monstrous year.
When I update my rankings tonight, he's moving up about 5 spots.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So let's go on to round 8 here. Zach Moss, who they put out a depth chart today on Monday, and he was listed as number 1. But, Zach Moss, Jalen Warren, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb. That's round 8. Moss, Warren, Eckler, Chubb. Dave, your thoughts? Moss, Warren, Eckler, Chubb.
They feel like different. They're all different. Moss is someone that you can draft to be your RB2 to begin the season. I think Warren in full PPR can do that as well. Eckler, if he finds his old form, he finds the fountain of youth, he's going to end up being the steal of the year. I just don't think he's going to get there. He's sharing with Brian Robinson. He's got a quarterback that runs. That's not good for targets. And I think the offense is going to be a little more conservative. I don't care what Cliff Kingsbury did in Arizona. I think he's going to be told to be a little bit more conservative. And then you got to wait for Nick Chubb. And he might not be back until Thanksgiving or Halloween or any other holiday that's in autumn.
You think, is that based on anything here? Or what should we expect if we draft Nick Chubb?
I think you should expect him to miss the first at least month and a half of the season.
Wow. Okay. And then you could take Jerome Ford in round 11.
You could take Jerome Ford.
But they did not seem so willing to just turn Jerome Ford loose last year. They were using Kareem Hunt a lot. So maybe it's a 4-minute.
But there's a little bit of a different thing there. Kareem Hunt was someone that they're very comfortable and familiar with. I know hopefully Dante Foreman is fine. I know he's back with the team. I don't know if he's practicing yet, but scary incident last week. And there were some people thought that, okay, maybe Foreman is going to take Ford's job away. I don't view it that way. Ford to me is going to try and play the Nick Chubb role to a lesser extent while Chubb is out. And then when Chubb comes back, I think Foreman goes to the bench and Ford is still sort of locked into that second role, but also getting a bigger chunk of the bigger piece of the pie while Chubb is out. So I don't worry about what Jerome Ford may have let you down doing last year. He just didn't score touchdowns. He was still very productive in his role. And, there's no Nick Chubb for however many holidays Dave said he's going to miss. You could see, Ford, Ford could be, one of these guys that, I don't know, league winner, but certainly consistent starter. And then just to go back to the other group, for me, it's Jalen Warren by a huge mile compared to that other group. Like, I don't want anything to do with those other guys, to be honest with you.
Moss, Eckler, and it's even Moss?
Moss, I'll settle for, but I don't think he belongs in this group. I don't think Warren belongs in this group. I think he belongs close to the other group. For me, the Steelers running backs are back to back. Why
are the Steelers running backs higher than Jalen Warren was RB 29 per game in full PPR. And he was worse than that in half, and he was worse than that in non, obviously. That wasn't so good.
Well, this is more PPR conversation. I feel like Arthur Smith coming there and the offensive line continuing to get upgraded, which we've seen now over the last 2 years. They made a concerted effort to get better there. They're going to be one of the best running teams in the NFL. And so I'm moderately excited about Najee. I'm very excited about Warren. I think both these guys can be productive, better than they were a year ago.
And if there's one thing, we're consistent. If there's one thing we love on this show, it's always Arthur Smith. We've always supported.
Hey, as a coordinator, he was great for Derrick Henry. He was
as a run game coordinator, right?
He was great for Ryan Tannehill.
Great for Tyler Algier.
Maybe not so good for Bijan.
He was good for Bijan. Bijan just had too high expectations.
He was bad for Bijan near the end zone. That was the weird thing. He just didn't give him the ball there. All right, let's go to the next group. It's round 9. Brian Robinson, Javonte Williams.
Love this group.
Okay. Brian Robinson, Javonte Williams, Devin Singletary, Tajay Spears.
Yep.
Okay. You love them
Chase Brown here.
Because Chase Brown's not going to go in round 11 anymore. There's just no chance.
Yeah.
So if we're talking Robinson, Javonte, Devin Singletary, Tajay Spears, Chase Brown, this is why you could skip some of the other guys, right? Because these guys are different. Yeah.
I mean, you might have the best running back for the Titans, the best running back for the Bengals, the best running back for the Commanders, and look at the discount you're getting by comparison to the other guys that are on their same team, let alone the other players at the position. So all these guys have the opportunity to be, special talents. And so we've seen it in spurts for a couple of them. Spears, backing up Henry last year when they were trailing, he was good. Robinson, when no Antonio Gibson there, was great in the passing game. So surprised us a little bit with how he handled that role. And we know he could be a good running back. Obviously, Chase Brown is, the maybe the biggest riser of camp so far. And, despite what the depth chart says, Zach Taylor has said other things. Everybody covering the team has said other things. But, somebody in the chat earlier mentioned from Cincinnati, just watching Chase Brown tear it up. So there's a lot to love about this group. And then the other guys that are kind of get lumped in here that may be getting drafted too soon, Devin Singletary. Adam, your favorite stat, I think, of all time is that he's led his team in rushing 5 years in a row on 2 different rosters. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what he does for the Giants. Should be the lead guy there. And by the way, Matt Breida.
He makes playoffs every year.
Oh, yeah, you like that too. Matt Breida no longer in the mix to be on the Giants, going back to San Francisco. So hello, Tyron Tracy. But, Singletary is somebody that is not a bad guy to settle for, if you're looking at it from a 0 RB or hero RB perspective as your third guy.
Yeah.
So, it's a good place to be, if the ADP sort of holds, because, we've seen it several times. I saw it at the flex draft over the weekend. Spears went ahead of Pollard. How many times have we seen that and go, oh, wow, okay, this is another person that, is taking the guy who's established as opposed to the new guy, even though he's a new coach.
Yeah, let me give you a little bit more perspective here and look at NFC drafts. So this is high stakes leagues, usually have PPR since August 1st. So right now that's 25 drafts, but that's not nothing. You got Chase Brown going 94th and Zach Moss going 98th. You've got Tony Pollard going 90th and Tajay Spears going 95th. And you've got Najee Harris and Jalen Warren going back-to-back 81st and 83rd overall, back-to-back at running back. So those 3 backfields right now, the way people are looking at it, they're very, very close. They're very competitive. And, I think we pretty much know what we're going to know about Pittsburgh. I don't know that we're going to find out much about Tennessee because the coaches are probably just going to keep saying it's 1A, 1B. There's no starter. They're interchangeable. Cincinnati is the one that has changed a lot over the last few weeks. And I hope we get a little bit of clarity there. Some people are on the Moss train. Some people are on the Chase Brown train, but obviously the trains are very close to each other. They should probably be careful. Let's go to round 10. Ezekiel Elliott.
It's a great movie with the train.
Throw Mama from the
Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible. I knew you were going to say that. I finished Top Gun Maverick, by the way.
Awesome.
It is actually really good. It's really good. I was a little bored by the first 30 minutes or so, but it got very good. And I'm enjoying these reboots. Did you guys see Axel Foley? That was good.
Not yet.
Beverly Hills 90210, Axel Foley. Very good. Wouldn't that be a fun spinoff? Okay. So Ezekiel Elliott in round 10. Gus Edwards in round 10. Trey Benson, round 11. Blake Corum, round 11. Chase Brown, round 11, but that's not going to happen. Jerome Ford, Zach Charbonnet. We have a lot of handcuffs at this point, but we also have the Cowboys running backs. We have the Chargers guys. We have Jerome Ford. We have Chuba Hubbard. So, Dave, what's your strategy now?
Riser.
Yeah, Dave, what's your strategy now? At this point, you have at least 3 running backs for the first 9 rounds. Sometimes you're going to have 4 running backs. What do you do at this point?
This is the area where you start to take shots on guys to hopefully break out, help you at some part of the year, maybe be a starter in RB2. I love collecting depth at running back. I'm still going to take, I've talked about this at the end of RB Preview 1. I want to end my draft with 6-7 running backs on my team. I don't have to go and chase them all at the beginning of the draft because they're getting pushed down. There's values to be had here. Dowdle is certainly somebody that's got my attention. I think you said Jerome Ford is in this range.
Yes.
That's somebody I'd like to have. I'm kind of encouraged by what is going on with J.K. Dobbins in L.A. I think Chuba Hubbard is someone that you could potentially start to begin the season if Jonathan Brooks isn't ready to go. There are some interesting running backs that just – it's not going to cost you much. If you're wrong, so what? You dump them. And if you're right, Hans Booby, they're your white knight.
Great reference.
Yeah, that was a very good reference.
You got to pause a little bit. Hans.
I was just trying to finish talking.
Booby. I love that. Okay, so I am looking again at that ADP just from the last 4 days on NFC, and the Cowboys running backs are going really late still. Ezekiel Elliott, 126th. Rico Dowdle, 146th. Jamie, are we just not going to have a good Cowboys running back this year, or do you want to invest in this backfield at almost no cost?
I definitely want to invest in the backfield at no cost, and I think what will end up happening is, depending on how the preseason reports continue to come out, and if we see anything in the preseason, there may be a swing in Dowdle's favor significantly, because I don't think anybody's excited about Ezekiel Elliott, but you could get excited about Rico Dowdle if he is clearly the guy, and Adam, I think you've been a little bit ahead of this in aggressively drafting Dowdle. It hasn't been a huge surprise that Dowdle's gone ahead of Zeke. You've done it like 3-4 rounds in the last couple of drafts that at least I noticed.
Round 9, I think I think I was taking him.
Yeah, and again, it's the type of pick that could, I don't know, be a huge difference maker. But if he is getting the type of work that a Cowboys running back typically get, like we were overdrafting Tony Pollard based on how it turned out.
Yes.
But he was still a good running back for the second half of the season, when he said he was finally healthy, that Carolina game. If you're getting that type of player, not a top 10 overall pick, not a first round pick, but a top 40 overall pick in round 9, why not? So when you get into this group of guys, look, there's some easy guys you can say, I like this player better than Dowdle. We can talk about Ty Chandler. We haven't got to him yet. You mentioned Chuba Hubbard, Jerome Ford. I don't see a lot of huge differences between Ford and Dowdle, to be honest with you, because Ford's not going to hold the job for the majority of the season unless, of course, Chubb is out until Christmas based on Dave's list of
Valentine's Day. Valentine's
Day would not matter for fantasy managers. But Dowdle could be the guy, barring a trade, barring Zeke turning back the clock. And so he's the Cowboys running back I think you want to look for if you're looking for upside.
So who are some of the guys that you take? I mean, who are some of the guys that you take in this range? It's a lot of handcuffs. But like I said, it's also the Chargers guys. You look at your rosters, you have a lot of who?
A lot of Jerome Ford, a lot of Chuba Hubbard, the last couple of drafts that I've done. For me, it's still, I agree with Dave. J.K. Dobbins is certainly intriguing, but still Kamani Vidal in this range too. I hope he ends up being, at worst, the third guy, but somebody that could push for opportunities here. I love Marshawn Lloyd in this range. I love Tyrone Tracy, in PPR in this range. And despite the fact that they just added Breida in San Francisco and Jordan Mason's got some nice publicity lately, I still take Elijah Mitchell in this range because, when you talk about just true handcuff, not going to play very much, may get some opportunities, but should the starter go down, I still believe Elijah Mitchell is going to be the lead runner for the 49ers. And we know what that could be. Whenever he's had double-digit carries in his career, we're talking about 14-plus PPR points. It's not McCaffrey, but it's certainly a starter.
I picked up a little bit of Ford, a little bit of the Chargers veterans. I think Vidal might get drafted and then dropped, and you might be able to pick him up if he becomes a thing in the second half of the season. Chuba, I've been drafting a lot of. Blake Corum, I've drafted a decent amount of.
Jaleel McLaughlin for me is somebody I'd still take a lot. I know that Javonte Williams, train is headed in full steam right now, which is great. Hopefully he's back 2 years removed from the ACL, and the offseason reports that we got were just a bunch of talk. But we know they're going to use multiple guys. How many?
Yes.
That's the biggest question. Apparently there was something in the press conference. I want to go back and take a look. Where Sean Payton on Tuesday, Monday. On Monday, where Sean Payton was talking up even Samaje Perine. So take it for what it's worth.
Right.
But it feels as if you're going to see the pecking order start to establish as Javonte 1 and McLaughlin 2, and sort of estimate, I think, being the big back that if they want to use him at some point, we see how that all works out. But I like that McLaughlin bought his own jugs machine this offseason and has been working on, getting his hands in a better spot, catching the ball. And, he was very explosive last year, just, which is something I know you love, Adam, in terms of when he got the ball in his hands. He was, breaking off some big runs, and that's fun to see. So if something happens to Javonte or they do decide to make a move, he's somebody I think that could end up being a difference maker as well.
I'm just worried that he'll be constantly with another running back. Like if Javonte goes down, it's not going to be Jaleel McLaughlin all the way. Estime might get in there, and then McLaughlin could be the third down guy, and maybe he sees a few more reps with Estime, just as an example.
We like to, understandably so, make comps when there's, coaches that have been in other spots and players that, look like they could do some certain things. And I'll go back to what Robert Turbin said to us today, Adam, about Alvin Kamara. And it felt like he was at his best when there was another guy there.
Yeah.
And if you're going to look at Sean Payton's offense, who's the closest of the Broncos guys that could be Kamara? You could say Perine maybe because he's a,
No,
pass catching back.
I don't think
explosive
you say Perine. Right.
But from an explosive standpoint, it's Julian McLaughlin, you know, and
Right.
so if somebody can step up into that role, he's the one that can do it. And that's the kind of the vibe you were getting prior to Javonte coming to camp and getting all this praise. It was that McLaughlin was going to be the Kamara for, you know, what Sean Payton was looking to do.
Right. I mean, if Javonte is as explosive as they're saying, then maybe he could be a version of Kamara. But
He's just not that kind of pass catcher.
I think he can do it. I don't think he's quite as smooth as Kamara. And I don't know if McLaughlin is either. McLaughlin's got to be a good pass protector if he's going to play even more. Estime and Buffalo's Ray Davis are two more running backs that I've been taking very late. But usually what I've been doing is kind of skipping out on running backs with the late picks because there's some interesting quarterbacks, tight ends that I don't mind doubling up on those positions just in case one of them hit late.
You guys mentioned Dobbins and Vidal, but didn't really talk about Gus Edwards. Is Gus still your favorite Chargers running back?
He's the one that should be going first. I mean, look, you know, he's healthier than Dobbins. He's presumably, you know, we don't know exactly what surgery he had this offseason, but historically is healthier than Dobbins. And it feels as if Vidal's got a long way to go, you know, but like Dave said, you know, he could be the type of guy that you draft, you drop, and then we get one injury to one of the other guys. And we're talking about Kamani Vidal as being a role player and then maybe taking over for, you know, one of the older guys because, you know, well, at least Edwards is, you know, pushing 30. But yes, Edwards should be the guy that, you know, you draft first, but don't overvalue him just because he's the potential lead guy for the Chargers. If Dobbins is healthy, he's got a chance to be the best guy there. We know Greg Roman knows both those guys very well. And Vidal is the one that is part of this new regime. They brought all these guys here, but they drafted him, you know, maybe to be the guy of the future. We don't know, but, you know, maybe the guy of the present also. So I like to set up for him. And then one more guy for me, Adam, is Ty Chandler. I don't know if we've talked about him yet, you know, just his potential to be in a shared situation at some point with Aaron Jones, maybe right out of the gate, you know, so somebody I think that could be a difference maker. As we saw last year, Aaron Jones missed a lot of time.
Okay. I want to get a lot of these guys. I want to get Charbonnet. I want to get Chandler.
Charbonnet's another one. Yep.
I want to play Handcuff King of the Hill to end the show. I'm going to give you a handcuff. Who can knock him off the hill? Now, this is not, you know, they're going to have a role even if the guy doesn't get hurt. This is only all of the starting running backs get hurt, okay? Who becomes the best lottery ticket, essentially.
So you're going to name two running backs. We're going to tell you who's better if the guy in front of them is hurt.
Yes. Elijah Mitchell versus Braylon Allen.
Mitchell.
Elijah Mitchell, King of the Hill, current reigning champion, or Tyler Algier?
I think we might be done already with King of the Hill because
I don't know. Mitchell. I don't know if I agree with that.
Go ahead.
Okay, you're going at him over Algier? Mitchell's still the king?
I'll take Mitchell.
Okay, let's see. Mitchell or Will Shipley? Mitchell or Trey Sermon?
Mitchell.
Mitchell
was better than Trey Sermon when they were teammates.
Yeah. Mitchell or David Montgomery? LOL. Mitchell or Blake Corum?
Mitchell.
Really? Okay. All right. Then maybe we are done. Mitchell or Tank Bigsby?
Mitchell.
That's another late rounder. Bigsby. I'll take Mitchell, though.
About Mitchell or Jahmyr Gibbs, who would obviously be the handcuff to David Montgomery? He's probably going to be the starting running back.
You know one that is interesting. I still take Mitchell, but if Achane and Mostert get hurt,
Jalen Wright or Jeff Wilson.
Yeah. I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if Wilson makes the team. They keep four tailbacks.
I really thought Corum
was making the team over him.
The other three guys.
No, you're saying if they don't keep four.
Yeah,
I think he's making it because I think they will keep four.
Oh, okay. How about this one? Mitchell or Trey Benson?
Mitchell.
Okay, he's the king. And I have to go finish House of the Dragon, find out who's the king there. So
maybe it's Elijah Mitchell.
Maybe. We're going to wrap
flying in on a dragon.
We're going to wrap it up. Thank you. This is Running Backs Part 2. On Thursday, we'll be back. God, it's Monday night. Our next podcast is until Thursday. That is so weird.
It's my fault.
We'll talk. No, it's fine. Freed up my morning. So we'll talk to you.
Three different states before then.
Thanks, guys, for hanging out on this Monday night, and hope everybody has a great day, and see you later.